Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We really appreciate seeing you here, where today we are talking about how to elevate your competence. My name is Michael Dancloffs, and I'm here with Suzanne Buchanan. We also have a few people who are joining us live as well. We do these summits once a month about deep subjects, things that we really want to kind of dig into and have authentic conversation. And not from this I'm going to fake authenticity, but really I kind of go into what our story is, what our experiences are with this, as well as our recommendations on how to elevate an area of your life. We also want to open it up for the people who are joining us live, as well as we want to hear and learn ourselves. This is as much about us learning and sharing our knowledge up to this point. So, Suzanne, tell me about competence for you.
For those of you who are joining us live stream from across the world and on YouTube, you name it, we're so glad to have you here. For those of you here on Zoom, we love that because then we can have personal conversation with you. So thank you so much for showing up. And as Michael said, my name is Suzanne Buchanan, and I am a career communication specialist that loves bringing people together for conversations that matter. And like Michael said, once a month we get together, we go live, and we talk about a different aspect of personal growth and development that really matters in building the life of our dreams, in becoming successful, and actually overcoming some of the craziness that we're living through. So if you join us, you'll see there's a method to our madness. There's an arc to our year that we've designed every month to stack upon the conversations we've had previously and building us and building our skills into that person we know that we were meant to be. So, today we're talking about competency. Last month we talked about consistency. So you can see kind of where this is going, right? So when it comes to consistency, we'd love to know how that fits with competency. Because as we talk about competency, now you can see why we talked about consistency first, right? We're stacking, we're building, and by repeatedly showing up, we're able to build that competency. So Michael and I, when we first discussed this topic, we felt like it was big enough to bring to you as well. And for those of you who are with us on Zoom, please feel free to use the chat. We're a small enough group. We love it intimate so that we can have real conversations, and just know that we love to engage with you. So we'll ask questions, and please feel free to use the chat. And sometimes we can even come live, especially if it's an intimate group. So when it comes to competency, when you think of competency, do you think of you? Do you immediately think, I'm competent? How does that sit for you? What does that feel? For those of you, Rhonda, Andrew, Leslie, we'd love to have you. We'd love to also have your input as well. When it comes to competency, do you scream, oh my gosh, that's me? Andrew, it's so great to hear from you. Thank you. Andrew put in the chat, there's a lot going on in the world, and we all have busy schedules. And how we show up at any time really tells us where we are, where our priorities are, where our competency is. It matters, right? And it impacts everything. There are also things that can happen that shakes our confidence in our competency. Michael, what about you? When we first had this subject, were you like, oh, I'm competent, that's me?
Well, I certainly, I even kind of see this in our comments here as well, is that there's certainly many areas where I'd say that I am competent, and other areas that I know that I'm not. And, it's sometimes as we grow and as we learn that it can feel like, I saw someone mention that they started a new job, and it's now like, well, now I don't feel competent anymore because I'm starting fresh. And I think that is an area where we learn to grow. And it's one of the biggest things that I learned in college was it is learning how to learning how to become more competent. But also, kind of to back this up a little bit, is in this chain, we actually started off with courage first, and then consistency, and then competency. And having the courage to start something new is, I think, a key aspect of this as well, is that it's a matter of, hey, it's okay to suck for a little while in order to get to a place where we actually gain that new skill, that new awareness, that next level for what we're doing.
Yeah. So there's two things in that, guys, I don't want to let go that Michael said. Number one is it's okay to suck for a while. It's okay to suck for a while. Now, notice he put a condition on it, for a while, right? And a lot of us just feel so relieved that it's okay to suck, we forget about the for a while. So we do want, the suck part to be en route to something much greater, something towards competency. And if you have the audacity to move beyond competency to excellency, right? We want you to have excellence as your ultimate standard. But you know what? Let's start with competence, can we? And, the other thing that Michael said was really just that he alluded to having a plan. How many of you have a plan? A learning path, a plan for your life path? Sometimes, we attract people in the Mind Valley and Life Book communities, right? So these are kind of preaching to the choir folk who care about personal growth and development. But to care about it is a little bit different than to have a structured plan. Michael, can you tell me a little bit about the difference in your life before you actually had a plan?
Absolutely. So I think that you kind of allude to this idea of what the Lifebook community is really a lot about. Is about having an intention, a goal, a process that you're going to move towards. And I kind of started off with personal development as kind of the wild, wild west. And it's, as soon as it becomes part of a larger structure, it actually feels a whole lot better. So before, it was, I can read a book here, I can actually do a program there, but it all seemed kind of haphazard. And it felt like I was wandering around in the woods with no path, with no destination, with no idea where I was or where I was going. So, I was kind of plugging along in what I was doing for my job. Even the relationship that I was in was more casual and more loose. There's a lot more. I didn't really have defined on what I wanted from a relationship. I didn't really have defined what I wanted from my profession. I didn't have,
Stay there.
So it was kind of this, kind of a trap that I fall into in the past as well, is just kind of being on autopilot, where you just kind of turn off, and you're now, it's that idea of driving to a place and you don't remember the last 5 miles that you drove because your brain is somewhere else. And realized that I potentially was missing quite a bit along that journey because I had turned off that awareness, that intention, versus now kind of switching gears, going through a process to decide what that path is and be willing to take whatever it takes in order to get to that end destination. It actually feels a lot more fulfilling. It feels a lot more, I mean, organization to some degree certainly helps. For sure, is actually having a sense of what the path is, but I can also check my progress on something. If I don't know if I don't know the destination, it's hard to determine how close I am to getting that which I truly want.
Yeah,
So,
guys, so like here, and forgive us if we sound like broken records, because we are, but it goes back to vision. Michael talked about knowing where that plan is going, and during the time that he didn't feel like he was on the right path, he said he also didn't have a clear idea of what that destination would look like. So when you look at those in your life and around you, and maybe at yourself, if you see those people that they're not quite charting a clear trajectory, they probably lost their vision. And I will say that vision is important on the path to competence and on the way to excellence. Know what you want, know what you're working for, know who you are. And above that, guys, I'm going to move this past all of this skill talk, because I always do. That's why we're here. We go deeper. Let's talk about your identity. Competence and identity. Sometimes when you know who you are, that identity forms the standards you live by. And it's super important for us to, it works both ways, right? Number one, and moving forward, we set a standard and then we work to achieve that standard. And once that standard has been met, we feel aligned. It also works the other way, where we can diagnose, use it as a diagnostic, where we know something's not right in the area of our life. We know we're not really competent. We're not really showing up. We're not really moving forward. We're shirking, we're hiding. Let that also be a diagnostic that traces back not just to skills needed, but to your identity. Competence can be who you are. And if there's an area that you don't feel confident about, I would just do a little check in with how you feel on a deeper level about that. And yeah, I'm taking this a little bit deeper than career skills. You know, are you even a competent partner? Are you a competent parent? Are you a competent friend who shows up? Right? There's so many opportunities for us to be competent that are so much deeper in your spiritual life. So these are just some of the areas Michael and I are not afraid to go there. And we want to attract the people that are bold and brave, that, I personally believe there's a war against excellence, and we're all pulled by society and by many places to be average. And I don't know about you, but I wasn't sent here to live an average life. And I'm guessing that you weren't either. In fact, I know better. And I think you know better too.
So I think what keeps coming up for me as you're talking about this is the competence to me partly is doing something often enough consistent enough that you've achieved a level of competence in it. And Andrew kind of pointed out is the idea of being on the road and stoplights and along the way. But if you're just driving around in circles, you're not really getting anywhere. But it's really the idea of consistently doing something long enough that it's become then rote. And it's one of the things that we wanted to kind of discern the difference of habits versus the getting to a level of competency. Even consistency versus habits is what's underneath that. What is the beliefs? What's the premise underneath that of I'm a person who shows up as this. I'm competent at doing this because I've shown up enough at this that this is now who I am, as well as what I do. So I think we need to also be aware of that, is that it's ingrained into us, and it is self-reflective in that as I say I am it, I'm taking the actions that then prove to myself and to others that I am that, and then we continue the cycle until we get to this place of competence, where we get to a place where we have the basic skills and then move into the more advanced skills and then eventually into mastery of those skills. And to me, the only way to really get there is to have a plan of where you want to go and then start taking the steps in order to get there till you get to the level of competency. But if I were to practice being in 5 different religions in sequence, I'm not going to get the depth of that religion, that practice, the rituals, to say that I'm competent at it, or to be in a different place, a different mindset, a different how I show up with my partner, with my wife, is that if my moods are all over the place, if I am actually like so chaotic that it actually becomes so far off the map that she can't trust in me showing up as me and what that looks like, because I'm trying to be so much other things. So I just want to kind of, come back to this, is that it's like it is a stage of a stage of being. And we wanted to start with that idea of it's a stage, and then as a springboard to go to what's next, to be then competent at the next level, to become moving towards excellence and moving towards mastery.
Guys, how is this hitting? How are you feeling? Andrew, thank you so much for the comments. Absolutely. And I know, Rhonda, you said that, as you age, you kind of feel more confident. And I just wonder how many for us is it, it's because you survived, that you've survived many things that you're like, oh, I can do this. I've got this. Then you start believing you're more competent. And that is one way, that's definitely something. But I think also we want you more than surviving. We want you masters of your destiny. And I think sometimes we forget we're creators. We're powerful creators. And every decision, actually every thought we think is a micro decision. And every decision is a building block towards our destiny, towards the future that we're creating. And so when it comes to competence, your thoughts, your actions, they all matter. And, you can look at there's all these external signs too. You can really see when somebody's not, they're not growing in their profession or their personal development. One of the easiest questions we can ask ourselves is, what's the last book you read? And do you have a plan? Michael is somebody who really helps people with plans, right?
Absolutely. And the plan is actually a good place to start. And it's one of the things that I love about the whole Lifebook community, or what's available in Mind Valley, or a few of the other personal growth programs that are out there, is the plan is the starting place. And then it's a matter of then taking action on the plan, so you're actually getting to the destination. So competence doesn't come from planning it. Confidence doesn't come from thinking about it. It comes from taking the actions in order to get there. And sometimes that is brainstorming, yes, but there needs to be an action at the end of it, because, you know, I think as Andrew said that, with age comes wisdom. I would challenge that a little bit, because just because you've been around does not mean that you gain wisdom unless you're doing something about it and doing something with it. Because it's one of my shortcomings, maybe, is that I trust people who are doing it rather than the people who are reading it and regurgitating it. I come from, here in the United States, the state motto of the state I was born in, Missouri, is the show me state. Is show me what you've done with this. And that to me shows a sign of competence. And that does unfortunately have me judge some people is, okay, you've never done this before, so how does that mean that you can accomplish it if you've never been there
Yes.
before? And that is a challenge for me, and I'm willing to own that, is that I want to learn from people who have put it into practice and have gained that wisdom from the actions, that they are showing their competence by, if somebody says that they can juggle and they can teach you how to juggle, do you trust them to teach you how to juggle if you cannot see them juggling? And I think that shows up in a lot of other different areas, if that's in business, if that is in a social structure, if that is in a spiritual practices, if that is in health and fitness. Like for me, it would be very difficult to be trained in health and fitness by someone who is out of shape. It's one reason, at least right now, I don't coach on health and fitness, because that's not an area of strength for me. But it's that the confidence certainly is an underlying thing, and confidence comes from doing it. But then, like I said, there's this level that I feel that someone gets to where you're no longer the white belt in martial arts. You didn't just show up and put on a uniform and now you're a martial artist. You actually have shown up and you've practiced and you've actually moved up in the ranks. You've actually tested yourself in a way that has actually shown to you that you are capable, and then be moving towards competence.
Yeah, Michael, I think that's not a shortcoming. I know you were being very, light about that, but guys, we all know, if I were to pick one industry that this is so prevalent in, it would be the coaching space, the online coaching space, where so many coaches, they want to coach other people without having built a successful whatever it is that they're coaching. Business coaches are some of the worst repeat offenders I've seen, where people are teaching others or coaching others on how to build a business who've never built a successful business themselves. And I probably err on the opposite side, where I'm like the anti-coach, only because I believe that if I share a skill with someone, I don't want them to repeatedly come back to me. I want them to fly free and build an empire of their own. So I do consulting for communications, for business communications, for public relations, for community relations. I will never call myself a coach in that way. So that's my bias in the other direction. But we have to be very careful. And competence, what are the signs of competence that we should look for in ourselves and in others? Michael mentioned one of the most obvious ones is, having proof of the work that they've done. And that's super important. Sadly, we live in a time where some of that can be baked too. So definitely. But I feel like this is a little bit of a tangent for us. We really want to focus on our competence and our ownership of our destiny.
Absolutely. And I keep coming back to this, and I know that a fair amount of our community who watches and is involved in these is the Lifebook program. And it very much has this key focus on have the plan, execute on the plan, and then build to that level of competence. And each one of the categories has its own strategy in order to do that. But I know that someone mentioned earlier that they are moving to a new job. So Leslie had mentioned that she's changing jobs, and it's building on that kernel of awareness, that kernel of competence, and then applying that into a different level. And for me, that's kind of why I did go into this coaching space. Is I took the Lifebook program and made it part of my life. It is a foundation of what I do, and to the point that I actually, like, even as we're talking here, as we've kind of sculpted what this session is going to be, I use a tool called Notion that is where we keep our notes. Well, that's also built on this foundation of the categories a life book. So my goals are related to that, the actions I'm taking, the process that I'm actually um, keeping to track my progress. So it's not that this is just, I went through the program and, hey, you need to do this, but I wanted to take it to another level where I could help lead other people into their greatness by really drilling down into each of those components to refine it to their words, their vision, their beliefs, and their strategies. Because I very much agree that my strategy works really well for me. It's a formula and a recipe that works great for me and where I'm at in my life. And helping others be able to discover what that is for them is key, because even my level of competence for something is different than yours will be. So inside of that plan, my question to each one here is, though, is where are you building to the next level? What is that space that you're going to? What is the place that you are elevating your life by taking consistent action to do it? Is there one key area? What is that overriding goal that you're working towards? I'm really curious for each of you, if you could type in the chat, do you have that overriding goal that you are actually building towards competence in an area of your life?
Now, where are we growing right now? And if you're stuck too, if you're feeling like stuck or stalled, you can comment about that too, because that's real stuff. And if we're not helping you get through where you are, then we're not doing our job either. And all of us have those times when we just feel stuck or uninspired. I mean, if COVID didn't blow the wind out of, we know it blew the wind out of so many sails.
So to throw out an example for me, like one of the areas that I'm working on in one of the accountability groups that I'm in is around health and fitness. That is an area that I want to be better in my life, that I do want to get more competent. I've got the knowledge, and that's kind of what I want, coming back to with what Andrew said, is I've got all the knowledge. I know what I should be eating. I know the movements I should be taking. I know the sessions of doing that, but was I acting on that? No. So my wife and I have actually shifted gears and really focusing on that being a core of our lives, eating better, eating higher quality foods, what have you, for us to get in a better state of health. Because since COVID, both of us have actually gained a fair amount of weight, and certainly working a job, growing a business, having a relationship, all gets really complex. So it's a matter of then finding the balance between each of those. But that is one of the key things of, I've got a goal where I want to become more competent and build that into who I am. Gotcha.
Yeah, I love, Veronica was saying that she is reviewing her life book because things have changed. And we do, guys, we change. And even, for some, we change quickly. Some of us, sometimes life causes us to change. Sometimes we change. So it's really important to go back and review those areas. And also check in with yourself. Our emotions are the most powerful GPS we have. They are our guidance positioning system that helps us understand, where we're showing up, where we're not, where we're hiding. And it's super important for us to have that kind of check-in. Michael talked about his health commitment that he's currently learning and exploring, and in a program where he's actually working on his health. That's something I definitely support, and I'm super active. I call myself a developing country. Like, I consistently have health priorities and needs because I have a super high maintenance body with a rare, potentially fatal blood disease. So like, that's like, talk about a habit for me. That's life maintenance for me, is to live on that healthy track. So while that's not something I struggle with, it's something I consistently, repeatedly do. And I have become abundantly competent because of that choice to repeatedly try to improve my life, try to save my life. And then, I think, as mentioned too, Veronica, like, if you're not sharing, and Leslie too, if you're not sharing that knowledge and imparting it to others, that's an important part of the journey too. So for me, it's in always building that competency, always sharing it with others so that can help them on their health journey too. I also am consistently learning about business as a small business owner. And there are constantly skills that I am seeking to improve. And where I mess up, it's very obvious. And then there's accountability for me too. So definitely those are areas.
Yeah, and I really kind of coming back to this, that the areas of our life grow and match, and it's a living document. I physically have a life book that I've wrote out and I printed out, and then I have what I use every day, what I use every month, that is constantly evolving as I'm evolving, as I'm refining, as I'm fine-tuning, as I'm adding in a quote that really captures that sense of what I want to do, writing in my own quotes as well of, wow, did that actually come out of my mouth? I've got to remember that. And I think that there's this idea of, once the book is written, that it's done, and it's not. That is the first iteration, it's the first draft. So I think that we need to remember that as we move through this, that it's a process, and just like the rest of the journey of our life, it's ongoing, and we learn new skills along the way. We slow down, we speed up, we take changes in direction, and it's when we're living that intentionally that we actually find that space. So there is this dark side of that idea that it's constantly changing, though, is, especially with this particular subject we're talking about, is if I'm always changing the skill, if I'm always changing the identity, if I'm always changing the goalpost, how do I know when I've gotten there? How do I gain the competency, which is that kind of minimum proficiency at something, where I've actually identified that I am someone who will do this. I am this. I am an athlete. I am a business owner. I am a great father. I am whatever that piece is, until we've actually, to me, in some ways, it's proven to myself that I have gotten to that stage, the first stage, the second stage, whatever that is in my mind. So
It's very true. I mean, guys, be careful of that. When you are, if you see yourself frequently changing the goalpost or even the direction, that's actually not a change in identity. That's not deep enough, right? Identity work is deep. It's deep stuff. It's not going to change overnight. That's called hiding. And we all do it. We all do it. We get burnt in one direction, and we think, whoa, that's a sign. That's a sign. The heavens have spoken, and this is not for me, and I don't need to develop this skill. When in truth, we're hurt, we feel defeated, we feel incompetent. And we'd rather not face the uphill climb. But we all have an uphill climb. That's the path to competency, right? That's the path to skill building and learning. It doesn't have to be painful. Sometimes it can be amazing and inspiring. And I would say in the right ways, if you're moving in the right direction, it usually is. But
If we
yeah,
if we kind of play this back into the life book process, my vision is the one thing that I've actually kind of refined down for me is what does that look like? So if that to me is the goal, the things that I feel that I can refine more or I can change up and plug in and plug out is the strategies as I've actually done them as experiments. Set a finite time. I'm going to do this for this period of time and see the results I get. And if I get the results I want, I continue that as a strategy. So that part I think is really important. That we actually have the flexibility to learn new strategies in order to accomplish that vision. But it is that, as we said, the goalpost is that we need to apply that strategy long enough that we can see that there's going to be results one way or the other, either going towards or going away. And then we can then change direction if we need to. So, and Leslie, congratulations on finishing your first round of going through your
yeah,
life book. Because that's a big step. It's a huge step. And seeing, as each of the layers of life book really kind of plays out, and how they interact and interconnect is huge. There's a couple of people in the life book community who that is their specialty, is how everything interacts. But it is interesting what may be a supporting category for one person is not for someone else. So I think it's Leslie that is asking kind of what I use every day. So yes, I don't carry around my physical book. So I've actually translated my life book instead of the pages, which are originally in this book, they're actually done in Google Slides. So it actually is graphically beautiful. I've got the themes, I've got the pictures, I've got all that kind of supporting. What I've actually put it in is more of a database style thing. I know that in the Mind Valley's version of Lifebook, they have a way to put that into their digital system. I built a template for myself in something called Notion. In fact, in the Lifebook community, there is actually me showing off that iterate or that current position where my Notion of my Lifebook was. But that I can have on my phone. I can actually go and look at my categories. I can actually update my goals. I can actually keep that in that device that I know I'm going to be carrying around with me all the time. So what I use daily is around my goals, as well as around, I do a daily journal entry in there as well, and always related back to what was my category of experience that day. So when each time I go back and review each one of my categories, I then have all the journal entries of what occurred that related to that. So that's how I use it on the daily. Also, I use the 12 sacred choices as well on a daily basis, and I don't do that on paper, and I did that for a while, and it worked really well to have a actual scoreboard that was up on the wall that I marked down the things. Once again, I translated that into something digital on my phone through a different app to accomplish that. And I took it because that's the level that I want to be playing at. And I took that level of doing that on a daily basis. The app that I use actually shares it to other people. And I've taught them how to do it. And we hold each other accountable in that way because we've actually now are part of a community. It's something called Habit Share. So I've got half a dozen people that I'm actually in that space with. So I'm not doing it alone. And it actually, in working with other people, I've learned what works best for me and actually what I can support other people in around that. So just to kind of, that's where I'm at in my learning stage. That's the competency level that I'm at. Is it's something that I practice and make it easier for me to get access to it. And then of course there's other cadences to go in with that. So as an example, I go and review a category a month, which is the life book cadence So we're really doing a deep dive, and I then share that. I'm going to be an accountability group, and each of us shares our category pages. And they're so different and they're so amazing, but there's so much consistent between what each of us is working on. And I think that community aspect is really, really important for me, because that then I can share the skills that I've actually learned. They help reflect back to me what they hear from me too, so they can also know how I'm being seen, and if that's in alignment with how I see myself as well.
Yeah, and I love that, because we're also, and for those of you who have been with us before, we always talk about the tools and resources that help us achieve this. And accountability is almost always on the list. To have people in your life to help hold you accountable, but also to have your own internal system of accountability as well. So both external and internal. And the road to competency, you don't have to travel it alone. In fact, that sounds horrible. We want you to fill your life with other people that are sick of sucking, that are sick of average, that know that you were here, you were sent here, you are born with more, for more, capable of more, meant for more. And if we take the right steps, destined for more. So that's accountability for you. We show up here as well to try to really hone in on conversations that, yeah, they're consistent with the Lifebook principles, but they're consistent with personal growth for everyone. We feel like this is the way. And our conversations vary from month to month, but they are always, straight down to the point, and they always involve like-minded souls who are really serious about intentional living and not living an amazing life to chance. So we love that you're in Lifebook. We love that people gravitate to Mind Valley. We love the people who follow those beautiful vibration casters and vision casters like Bob Proctor, peace be upon him. But we know there's more, and we're not going to leave it to chance. So this is your call, because you may feel very comfortable talking about one area of your life where you feel competent, but we all know where we're not stepping up. We all know what that area is that we feel squeamish talking about, that makes us fidget, that we just procrastinate on. We know that exists for each one of us. And usually, for those of you who haven't heard it before, we always, there's an expression that your mess is your message. So usually that area that you are the most uncomfortable with is most likely your area of growth, the area of growth that you really need. It could be the area of healing you really need. And most of the time, the areas of growth and healing are one and the same, right? Because it's hard to grow in an area where we have yet to heal. So lean into those fidgety, awkward spaces and explore them. For me, that would be, the areas of finance. That's squirmish stuff for me. I grew up in a household where no one talked about money. And when I did hear those conversations, it was at like a zillion decibels. It was a lot of screaming. So I know what my area is, right? And for me, if you look at my inbox on my email, Investotopia and all of these different organizations, they're going to help me really write my money mind and come to terms with the areas where I need not just to heal, but I need education because I blocked that part out for too long. I worked for nonprofits, and then I realized nonprofit, that was me. So, there's all of these areas where it may not show up readily as our career. If you looked at me on the outside of the career, I was kicking some A. I was doing really well to the outside. But there were areas inside where I needed to heal. So, and that's why we show up. That's why we're there for each other. So is there an area of your life that you feel like it's time to get competent in? Yeah, me too. I'm sure I've got more than one. I know I have more than one. It's okay. It's okay, guys. This is your time. Never forget, you are not just sent here to react to life. You are a creator. You're a powerful creator in this space. So you've got this, you've got this, you've got this. This is something you can do. This is something you can master. This is something you can kick ass in. You don't have to worry. We've all got you. The universe has got you. So are you ready to leave average behind? Don't let it get you. Don't let it get you. My mom said that she wants one thing on her tombstone. She's 85 and she's a spitball. You can't get me. So don't let average get you. Right? You've got this. So we want to open this conversation up and talk about this stuff a little bit and just open the floor with no agenda, just to be here for you. So if there's any area that you want to talk about, please know that we're here and open for you. Tell me, how many of you, what's the last book you guys read? What are you working on? Michael, what are you reading?
Veronica, go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'm still reading now, in the process actually, because I'm doing also financial community with Diego, and I'm reading why does the stock goes up. Have you heard of this book?
No, write it
No?
in the chat. Let me see what it is.
Oh, okay. Why does okay, let me exact name. I will pick the book a little bit. It's like on the shelf.
Yeah.
It's by Brian Ferroli, I think that's his name, and
Cool.
it's for me who doesn't know anything about investing and stocks and like just really starting there. So it's like learning ABCs, which is like, oh, because like Diego and Sani, if you know them, they are like pro at the very high level on the top, and they know everything. And sometimes the way they talk is like some people, oh yeah, I know, yeah, I'm already investing, and for me it's like, oh my god, I don't understand anything. So that Brian Farrell, I think he's a friend of Sony, if I'm not mistaken, or Diego. So he came with an interview one time, and he said like, that's my book, and I went through like also like different situations in my life and how I got where I am now. So it's like, okay, let me buy that book. So I just received that book recently, because it took a while. Probably
Awesome.
was posted from US. I don't know where it came because I'm in Japan.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, thank you, I need it. This is I'm at like currently at this book. But besides that, like, I know, as you were saying, there are many areas where I'm lacking because I haven't I took the live book course in 2019, and I was very serious and like really worked hard on it. And then like after a while, some like many situations came into my life, and like lots of things have changed, and I kind of, got completely, how can I say, like I didn't really, like, I was working the beginning on my habits and stuff, but since I'm not very disciplined person, like I know the people who are disciplined, they can do it easily, do the goals, do that writing every day, like I don't like writing every day, and I was like coming home exhausted, and I have kids, and like I'm not even in that, to sit down and write. I'm like barely get to my bed. And like, so, but the Diego says like, no, you should start life book again if you want to do finances. So they really pushed, kind of like,
Yes,
we were
it
very
sounds
strict
like
about
it.
that. It's like, you have to. It's like, oh my God. Okay, so that's why I enrolled now into the premium community. It's like, because I really like, seriously, I just paid that financial, how can I say, financial community with Diego. Now I have to pay one more. Like I need budget, but no, you have to. And like, okay, so now I'm just starting over with, I have to do again evaluation, self-evaluation, right? Because I didn't do it also, like, since I've done it this summer, but it was like not very. So, and I'm aware that the thing is that the points I wrote on the live book, subconsciously, and like it was always there because I already started implementing those things which I wrote like 2 years ago, and like even this financial thing, I had no idea how I'm gonna learn these things about finances. But then comes that from somewhere else, like like from some other people, like about like that financial community with Sonny and Diego, where I started learning. Then there was like course about like 12 sessions about how to do the budgeting, like really basic things. So now I'm like, and I really aware that like my lacking, like I lack a lot of categories, like they're really beyond.
No, you do
Below
not lack.
ground
You
zero.
just have a lot of opportunity. It's just a beautiful opportunity for you to become. So don't be hard on yourself that you're lacking. But it sounds like, though, everything you did in 2019 still resonates in some way, but you're just not acting on all of it. So, and honestly, Veronica, you are not alone with what happened in 2020, 21, and part of 22. We have a global change, a global kind of heartbreak that happened. So you are definitely not alone. And I think it's a great idea to review it and to go back in. And especially, I think you're going to find some things remain the same. And that's even more confirmation that like, wow, this is who I am. This is what I want. And that's beautiful, that consistency that we talked about last month. And now is your time for mastery, for competency. And, Michael and I talk a lot about doing things we hate. Like you said, you don't want to write every day. It doesn't fit into your schedule. It doesn't fit into your life. But what is the cost of staying the same? What is the cost of 2 more years of not investing, and what is maybe a year of discomfort to set you up for a lifetime of achieving? Invest, invest, invest. Because the opportunity cost is great. And the only thing I don't want for you is to regret not trying. I don't ever want any of us guys to have regret. And I know how short this life can be. And if it takes a year to set you free, if it takes 2 years to set you free, and then you've changed your life trajectory, what an amazing, powerful 2 years that's going to be. So
there's one other aspect of this too, and I know that there's a lot of things that seem so far out of reach because it's that you need to write a page a day. That can seem overwhelming. So one of the things that I like to focus on is let's start with the smaller step. write a sentence for a week, write 2 sentences for a week, just to get the mind going and see what works and what comes out. Or switch to a different medium. Maybe it's hitting record on your phone and actually recording an audio of it. If the writing part is a problem, is find another way to accomplish the same result. So as an example, there's a program out there called Descript, which I use for our videos, and it can transcribe the things that you actually say. I'm sure that there's other tools out there that can do the same thing, or even just using the audio speech to text on your phone can also be another way to do that. But it's not always, like I said, the vision is important. Is get your thoughts out is the vision, but the strategy can change depending on what's going to work best for you. And starting at the small and then expand. And that's how we get to that space of competence. Is when you ride a bike, when you try to juggle, if you try to run a business, it's always starting with the small steps first. You're not going to be going off jumps and doing flips on a bike the first time you go out. It's a matter of taking that first step. It's that practice makes progress, which Suzanne loves so much whenever I say it, is it does get us getting to the level of progress of. That's one reason why we want to talk about this now, is that the competence to write like that, it does come from finding the way that works best for you, that you become competent at that, rather than how everyone else thinks you should do it. Because that's their vision, their strategy, and is their perfect recipe for them. But what is the result? What's the vision you want to create? And that's where we need to start before we start talking about strategies, before we talk about goal setting, before we talk about any of that, is where do you want to go? And is that where you want to go, or is that where you think other people want you to go? Because it doesn't sound like your heart's in it. That means it's not your vision, it's someone else's. So at least what I found is, I like to play with the words, and I like distilling it down to as succinct as possible until it's my words and it actually lights me up, where it actually is something that it's the switch turns on. And like I said, there was a question of kind of what do I do daily? There's another piece that I do daily, is that I've actually taken my life vision statements, that is each of the vision statements from each of the 11 categories, and I put that in a list. And I read that every day. I make that part of my daily approach to my day. It may be at the end of the day before I go to sleep. It may be early in the day, but where I actually am committing that to, this is where I'm going. This is why I'm doing all the things today that I'm doing, or all the things I did today. This is where I'm going. And I had to get it to a place where it excited me. Like I said, health and fitness is one of the things that I'm working on. I had to completely change the wording of that, where it was something that inspired me, so I could then start taking the action to get to the level of awareness, inspiration, and competence to get there. So how does that change your approach? What would you do differently with a slightly different awareness around it, Veronica?
Yeah, I'm thinking, thank you so much for suggesting me the script, right? This is what you said, the name of the app, because I'm trying to do a little bit of reading there and a little bit of reading this, and then I'm, but then I found out I stay late, and then because I'm trying to read here and there, and I have, anyway, what happens if you sleep late every day. And so to answer your question, probably I would, not probably, I'm gonna try that app. And my question would be, is would I just write down everything what's on my mind, or would I reflect upon the day according to the goals I've made, or what would be the content of that? Because
start an experiment, set a duration for the time, say a week, 2 weeks, a month, and pick one of those things to work on and see what it does for you. If it is reflecting on your day, me personally, I've got 7 questions that I ask myself of, what did I do really well today? What could I have done better today? Who did I make the day better for? What was something magical that happened today? How am I going to apply it in the future? So that's what I use for my journaling process. One of my clients actually video records himself answering those same questions because that is what works for them. So pick one and see what works, but set a finite time on when you're going to do it. And then see what happens with that. Because I think that what I hear in that is that there's so much resistance to do it. But just like Suzanne mentioned earlier, is where there's resistance is where we need to grow. It is the concept that Stephen Kotler talks about with the lion's pride. So he does a quest on Mindvalley called The Habit of Ferocity, and they use a lion for that particular icon, because when you hear the lion roar, it scares you. There's a lot of fear that's involved, and our general reaction is to run away from that which scares us. Unfortunately, they've set it up so the lionesses are behind you. They're on the other side. So as you're running away from that which you're afraid of, you're actually going into danger. Instead of actually having that fear, being aware of it, and having the courage to step into and towards it, because that's where our edge is. That's where we grow. That's where we will learn the most, where we have the biggest leverage. But it starts by taking that first step, and then see how that feels. And we may feel the fear increase, or we may feel it decrease. Either way, it's a matter of then taking another step. So for me personally, I would recommend pick one of those questions. What did I learn today? How was my day? What did I learn today? What could I have done better? Pick one of them that actually is you feel is going to take you to the next stage. And then enjoy the process. And
yeah, and there's so many different methods to do it. That's what works for Michael. He has some clients that do it, but there's many other ways to do it. And it's really figuring out what resonates with you and what inspires you to keep going as well. Don't give up on the whole thing because you haven't found the right process yet for you. Just be a little creative with it. And, like you said, one of his clients does video. Also, the idea that, you don't start by running a marathon. You run a few steps. You run to the end of the block. You baby steps. So start off by writing 2 lines or a paragraph. And start off by maybe what you feel. And if you feel nothing, write about that too, by the way. Yeah, that's also a sign.
So Leslie, I see you pointing out that it's not resistance, but it's paralysis by analysis.
Sometimes
that is resistance.
That is resistance. I agree.
I know that I suffer from this. I want to make sure I have all the boxes checked before I'm willing to start on something. And yes, there is way too many people out there who are giving great information. There's too many ways to do your finances, to do your health. There's so many areas where we can actually grow, learn from. It is one of the toughest parts, and why this concept that we're talking about today to me is so relevant, because all of those things are possible distractions. There's someone else's way of doing it. And it is, I've got books on the bookshelf that I've read, and I've got so many books on my bookshelf that I want to read. And I don't have enough hours in the day to read, enough hours in the day to do quests or get coaching or what have you, because there's places I want to go. But to me, that monthly cadence, like you reminded me of, Leslie, is really helpful, of doing a deep dive on quality of life right now, which is the quality of life month here in November. And what can I do this month to make that area amazing while still maintaining the rest of my life? Because the idea is to be 12 categories smart, not to be really great in one category and have everything else get eliminated or obliterated. So it is choosing that one thing to get to completion, knowing what that completion is. I don't need to know how to be a stockbroker. I do need to know who I can trust to learn from about stocks. And Sonny and Diego and Alex are certainly people who have the financial category down. So they're actually good resources for that. Who's living the quality of life that I want to live. And I want to learn from them. So having a focus and being able to focus down to that, I think, is actually hugely helpful. There's a couple of other books that I really recommend for that idea of having too much to do and wanting to go too many different directions. One is called Essentialism. The other is called The One Thing. So Greg McCowan is actually for The One Thing, I believe. And it's the idea of what is the one thing that is going to make everything else easier or obsolete, and focus on that thing for a large chunk of your day or of your week, so that you are actually moving towards the goal that you want. And it is why we have in Lifebook an overriding goal, that thing that is the primary thing that we're focusing on. So, but that doesn't mean that I can neglect my self-care, my spiritual practices, my partner, if I'm trying to grow my career, because all those things are important. But what is the overriding goal? What's the focus for this month? The other piece that we've mentioned as well is, if you don't have it yet, if you don't have people in a circle around you that are supporting you to grow, please find your tribe. They allow at least me to be really able to interact and be able to present, to explain and talk through where I'm at, and then get feedback and refine it with the help of others. Because this is, as Suzanne mentioned earlier, this is not a solo track. So there are accountability groups out there. There are people who can facilitate those for you instead. I do both. I'm in groups and I facilitate groups. But there is a whole section in the Lifebook community for finding an accountability group, because that also allows us to set a goal and be held accountable to the progress we're making. And for some, I know I'm more externally accountable. Suzanne's more internally accountable. We make it work, and finding the right way that works best for you around that, I think, is key too. Is, what is your accountability style?
Yeah, and we both work to increase the other. Like, you work on your internal accountability, I work on my external accountability, because I have such a strong internal conscience and clock. But I need other people too who are on that journey. And Michael works on the discipline on his internal clock, for sure. Beautiful.
Thank you, Veronica, for sharing that process, and Leslie, for
Yeah.
you also joining us as well. We really appreciate the comment that you're making. And if there's anything, go ahead, Veronica.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying, because I didn't get I'm trying to note in my phone. One goal. Second book, Essentialism, and the second is One Goal.
The One Thing. I'll actually put a link to it.
Okay, the one thing. Okay. Thank you so much. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, you're okay. These are all resources. We love to share resources, for sure.
Yeah. It's also, anyway, maybe it sounds like excuse, but it's a part of my personality as well. I try to do many things at the same time, like that. And
well, it sounds like that book is meant for you then. It definitely sounds like that book is meant for you. The other book that was brought up in the chat that's very good is Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. That's a really, really good book as well. So Leslie brought that up, and that's an excellent read.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, Leslie is also pointing out, Gretchen Rubin does a book called The Four Tendencies, which is all about the accountability styles, internal versus external, and the juxtaposition of how that works for people, and being aware of it. It's one reason why I kind of brought it up, is when we talked about accountability a couple of months ago, I appreciate how she approaches that, and the differences in how we do. I know one person who is the rebel, which is there's no internal accountability structure, external accountability structure that has you lean towards something. So it needs to be something that it's just your approach is a little bit different. So, and that awareness is awesome, but just like Suzanne said, there's an opportunity to grow and be more consistent in how we work with that, so that we can actually still accomplish where we want to go. So
that's right. And I don't abide by labels, and I don't label others. We are all fluid and growing and changing every day. So, you know, I take any book that categorizes people as an analytical tool and not, you know, not gospel, for sure.
Absolutely.
So these are all tools, guys. And if there's one thing that Michael loves, he's like the tool guy, right? So if we're not here to equip you, then why are we here?
Mhm.
Mm.
Beautiful. Any other thoughts? Cool.
Thank you everyone for showing up. We really appreciate you spending this time on a Saturday to kind of dig into these deep concepts. We are actually doing another session in November, just the way that the calendar played out. We're actually talking about vision again, because this is the time when we feel it's right to start looking at what the vision is for next year. Because once we get into January, we're already in it. So
exactly.
and then after that, in December, we're going to be talking about recovery and how to elevate that. What does recovery look like? We've worked really hard all year, but are we doing the self-care? Are we actually planning in the recovery time? Because we can be high performers. We can actually do fantastic things. And even after the best workout, some recovery time is needed so we can then build that muscle, build that strength, build that capability and
Absolutely.
that competency.
Guys, if you appreciated what happened today, you're really going to love vision, because that is a subject we're super passionate about, and we have such an opportunity by starting before the new year, as Michael said, to really get ourselves orientated, situated, and prepared for taking on the world next year in a way that we have never before. So November is the perfect time. December is an inspiring month. So what better time to use before the beginning of the year to really set yourself up for success all year long? So we look forward to seeing you. If you join us, we'd love to have you. And we love our people who show up live, but we also love our Zoom people here too that are part of the chat, so we can really better serve you and learn from you too. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye now.